Hey guys, alright, so before we proceed into the video, here's a little update for everyone, okay? So this is a disclaimer for any interruption in the internet or the quality of the video of our speakers and on the host side. So if at all the audio is good, go ahead and leave your phone at the side and feel free to listen to the recorded audio chat. So always remember, it's not all about the quality of the video, but more towards the content of the video. So we really hope that you guys have fun and leave a comment below on what you actually learned, or if you would like to share your experience on this particular topic in the comment section below. So have fun, guys.
Any decision that I make or anything I decide to do in life, it's always how is this going to be impactful. Biggest thing you can do is listen. Then your skill or what you learn, you can make yourself helpful to others.
This series is brought to you by the Reset app, an amazing app that equips you to be happy by flexing the positive mindset muscle. So go ahead and download today. Link is in the description below. It's free.
Hello everyone, welcome back to Coffee with Friends, and today we are in episode 8. That's right, we have come to the final end of our Coffee with Friends series, and today we actually have a very special friend. And if you can see here, I have a co-host here today. So this is my sister. Hello. So since it's the last episode of Coffee with Friends, we decided to do it together because it's always either it's me or my sister. So here we are sitting together in one screen with our very special guest. And before I bring in our guest, I would like to actually introduce her a brief introduction. Okay, so our guest, number one, she is a doctor by profession. Okay, that's right. Give frontliners. Woo! All right, and second is she is a graduate from IMU. In 2016, our guest was the Vice Queen of Miss Universe Malaysia. In 2014, she was the third runner-up for Miss World Malaysia. And in 2012, she was a top 5 in Miss Malaysian Indian Global Pageant, right? And our guest has an experience of 10 years of modeling. That was like when we were 12 years old. So she has a lot of experience in the world of pageants, in modeling, and the best part, she's also a doctor by profession. So as we progress into this chat, we are going to learn how she actually juggled being a doctor and also how she took part in competitions, in pageants, and still won. So that's a really good story to hear, right? So before we bring in our guest, is there anything you would like to add?
I'm really excited about the competition.
Alright, so before we actually go and introduce our guest, just a brief introduction about why we are doing what we are doing here today. So it's basically Coffee with Friends is an initiative by the Minda Club. Okay, so the Minda Club is an NGO that has been here for the past 6-7 years, and we actually do a lot of community and social work. So in conjunction of World Mental Health 2020 this year, we decided to have a series of chats with very unique minds and talents who have inspiring story to share to the world. So this time we are going to touch on being human as our main theme, and we also are going to talk about mental health. So World Mental Health 2020 started off 1st September, and we have in total 8 chats with youths who have super duper awesome stories. And in October we have a series called Reset Your Way to Happiness. Okay, so that is where we have 9 to 10 chats with professionals and experts who are specialized in a specific field. For example, physical activity, food, music, clinical perspective, and everything. Okay, so without further ado, shall we introduce our guest?
Yeah.
Right. Okay, so let us bring in our guest, Dr.Dhviya Dhyana. Woo!
Hi, Kak.
Hello, Ka. So thank you so much for actually agreeing to join us. You know, we know Aka has a very packed schedule to get Aka's time is
It's a miracle.
Yeah, it's a miracle, exactly. So we are actually so excited to have Aka as our guest for the last session because from the first episode until now, we had a lot of interesting topics about meditation, physical activity, and we had about identity. And today we decided to bring in Aka for a more clinical perspective and also to share your views as a doctor on mental health. So before we actually go into the questions, Aka, can Aka give a brief introduction about Aka?
Hi everyone. Okay, first of all, thank you so much for inviting me for this conversation. I think it's a very good initiative that you all are doing because mental health is very, very important as physical health, and we sometimes tend to overlook the importance of it. So my name is Dhviya Dhyana. I'm a doctor by profession. I work in Klang General Hospital Tengku Ampon Rahimah. I'm in the medical department. I'm in a subspecialty called hematology, so we deal with blood issues. Apart from being a doctor, I happen to be in the modeling industry for, like you said, 10 years. But I was a very small fry at the beginning. I think eventually I joined pageants, the list of pageants that you mentioned. But I think the biggest achievement would be Miss Universe Malaysia, which was in 2016. I was crowned first runner-up. So since then, I think the platform just got bigger. I started doing more events, and I got into more modeling. I worked for bigger shows, and that I still able to thankfully juggle both because I want to keep both worlds with me. I don't want to compromise one for the other, so I'm still doing both. Yeah, that's about me.
Nice. That's really nice, Kak. Back in 2016 when we met Aka, I remember I was starstruck. Were you starstruck, Eve?
Definitely.
Yeah, because we heard about Aka through the news, and then we didn't think we would actually meet Aka. Then when we met Aka, I was like, whoa, like, speechless.
I was starstruck also because I was seeing twos, and I was like, okay, there are two of you.
We are very grateful that we met Aka because over the 4 years we are very inspired in seeing what Aka has been doing, balancing both worlds, which is very, very interesting. And yeah, so to begin our conversation, we are very interested to know about Aka's journey in the medical line, especially during your degree years, because we have friends who are also doing medicine, but they have shared that they are finding it a little bit difficult, stressful, and they do feel pressure, they don't sleep and all that. So this is their perspective. So we wanted to know, like, what was it for Aka? And somehow Aka was a pageant queen. So how did you manage both during your degree years?
Okay, during my degree, I think the first year was the hardest. First year is always the hardest because that's when you really get to understand what you signed up for. There are a lot of dropouts in the first year. So in my first, I think 1 or 2 years, I wasn't doing much of pageants or modeling. It's like third year onwards. It is, I wouldn't say stressful. It's a lot to cope with. But then again, I feel like you can't really say that's the only thing with medicine because I think lawyers are the same. Engineering is the same. Almost all other fields, you have to study a lot. There's a lot of things to do. But I think medicine is just longer and more stressful in the sense that you're dealing with life, so everything you learn has to be really, you have to be very sure about what you know. It was quite hard for me, but I think it all boils down to how you are as a person. If you're resilient and if you're hardworking and if you're strong, it plays a huge role in any field that you are in. Again, the people you surround yourself with together, when you do things together and when you share what's difficult, I think it's a lot more easier to cope when you find that there are other people in the same boat as yourself, and then you come out a bit easily, actually. Medicine's not that hard. It's just a lot of work, and if you put your mind to it, I think a lot of people tend to give up or think of giving up at a lot of points. But I had a professor who always said this, that every time you think of giving up, you have to remember why you started in the first place. So if you like paste it on your wall or something to remember why did you choose this in the first place, every time you think of giving up, you go back to that first reason and like, oh, okay, yeah, I still have to do it.
Wow.
So,
So what was Aka's purpose of doing medicine?
I always liked helping people, but then again, through the years, I realized there's a lot of other ways you can help people, not necessarily be a doctor. But I traveled quite a bit when I was younger, and I saw a lot of a lot of doctors who were using their skills and expertise for free service in a lot of rural areas, and that was something that I think touched my heart, because like, if you serving people is something that I feel is really important in life. And I think if you don't have the means to help people, like money or food or whatever, then your skill or what you learn, you can make yourself helpful to others. So I think that's what I chose. Okay, if I'm a doctor, then eventually I can go through situations where I can serve people without expecting anything. So like free treatment and services to all these disaster relief places, all these medical relief aids. I think that's one of the reasons why I did it.
Wow, that's a very noble purpose. Proud of you, Kak. So,
Thank you.
moving on to our second question, but before we actually go into the second one, I like when Aka talked about skills. The moment you actually have skills, you can actually help a lot of people, right? So
Yep.
it's very nice that Aka had that, like what my sister said, it was a noble passion. The moment Aka knows the purpose in your life, you would tend to go all out for it, and you would actually enjoy it. And somehow a job will not seem as a burden anymore.
Yeah, true.
So moving on to our second question, Ka. So as we all know now, Aka's a doctor, full-time doctor. So as a doctor, what is the one thing that Aka has learned after being assigned to the psychiatric department? Because we both understand that as a doctor, you will be moved to different departments every 3 months or 4 months. It's like a rotation, and we know from Aka's Instagram account and everything, Aka bakes a cake every single time Aka leaves a department. The cake looks so good, and it's only one. It's like a come 4 or 5 cakes. So how was it like to be in a psychiatric department? Because I can tell Aka really quick stories, because my campus is linked to HUSM. So it's basically when we are walking, we know the 5th floor has all surrounding it is fully I would say caged. They have like
Bars.
bars to actually lock the whole 5th floor. So I'm like, oh, interesting. So but then as students who are not in the medical field, we are actually not allowed to go up there. So this is where Aka is going to bring us into that department. How is it like being there?
Okay, so in housemanship housemanship training, we have 6 total rotations, and we, like you said, go through every department every 4 months. But psychiatry is actually not a compulsory rotation. Psychiatry is what I chose. So we have 5 compulsory rotations, and for your final posting, you can request whether you want to do emergency medicine, whether you want to do clinic or psychiatry. So I requested for psychiatry because I've always had like a passion in mental health. So I was lucky enough to be granted that rotation. They allowed me to do it. So I did 4 months of psychiatry before completing my training. What is the one thing I learned? There's a lot of things that I learned, but the one main thing I learned is that every human being has a psychiatric issue. Every one of us are damaged somehow, somewhere. I think life is not very easy lah, I guess, for different people. And no matter what is thrown at you, it's how you cope. And people cope differently, and eventually something always damages you somehow, whether it's your childhood, whether it's your family, trauma, relationships, finance, marriage, anything. I feel like that's one thing I learned. Everyone has some problem. I don't know if you've ever come across this quote, be kind to everyone, because you don't know what kind of battle they are facing. I think that's the one thing I learned most when I was in the psychiatric posting, because people who I never thought would be depressed or and all that, I met all sorts of kind of patients. And you think psychiatry is like, oh, like what you said, cages and bars and people running around crazy. It's not actually like that. I met so many well-versed people, patients who are well-educated, lecturers, professors, all these coming in for bipolar treatments or depression or suicidal attempts and things like that. So you start to question, like, it really doesn't matter what kind of person you are or how much you're educated or how successful you are. I think everyone's prone to some kind of mental issue, and that's why we have to take care of our mental health. That's really important.
I have a question, Kak. Did Aka learn more about yourself, and did Aka started becoming even more compassionate about for the patients and for the public? Did Aka ever experience that during the 4 months?
Okay, maybe it was the same, I guess, because I've always had an inclination towards mental health. My mom was in the Rotary Club. I grew up doing Interact project. There were a lot of things related to mental health all the time. So I think I've always been extra compassionate and empathetic towards patients. So this one just, I think, solidified the whole thing. Yeah.
Nice. So during NCO, a lot of us were stuck at home. But then Aka, as a doctor, you were on call almost every day.
It didn't make a difference to me. NCO. I see everyone complaining online. Everyone's ranting, and I'm like, hey, I do the same thing every day. At least you all get to chill at home and work from home. I'm the same. I work. Everything is the same except for less people maybe. And I can't go out and eat, so I have to order in. That's the only difference.
But how has it been for Aka as a doctor throughout MCO? How has life been for Aka personally and also professionally?
Personally, it was harder because I stopped visiting my grandma. So my grandmother is actually 91. And I visit her almost every week. As soon as the COVID thing happened, I was very scared to visit her. I think I didn't see her for almost 4 or 5 months, which is very rare because I see her every single week. Because I was so afraid, although I wasn't working in the COVID team, I wasn't directly dealing with COVID patients. It's still a hospital. You don't know who has, I don't have like a screening on my forehead to see who is positive and negative. You don't know who you're dealing with, and any patient who's admitted overnight, and psychiatric patients come from all over. Sometimes they're just wandering around, they're passerbys, they're someone who's brought them from some crowded place, and you don't really know until they're swabbed and they're negative. So I was always afraid that I could have been carrying the virus, so I didn't want to. I started going home much less. I used to travel back every weekend. I stopped doing that because I've got parents at home and my little sister, not so little, but yeah, my sister. And yeah, so I think personally it was harder because you're always afraid whether you're a carrier. And I think for most frontliners, that was the biggest issue for us, especially those working in the actual COVID team. So you never know who you're dealing with. In work line, I think MCO kind of stressed everyone out. So every patient that came, it was like, are they COVID positive? Are they, did you travel here? Did you go here? Did you go there? And all that. So it's like, it was a major scare, I think. Also, a lot of people started becoming scared to go to the hospital. So we actually had less patients coming in. But otherwise, I think what I want to bring up is MCO, although we are looking at, I spoke about this in another interview also, although looking at your physical problems coming from COVID, like your lung issues and whatever that COVID physically affects, right? We tend to not look at the mental side of it, mental health side of it, because COVID happened and then MCO happened and people lost jobs, people lost money and opportunities and a lot of things. And I think our depression, my rate of depression increased by 50%. We had much more patients coming into depression. That's when I said I saw a lot of very well educated, very well versed patients because they don't know what to do. I had a very prominent patient I remember forever. She was a lecturer from, I'm not going to mention where, but very top, like, I don't know, assistant professor or something, like a top position in the university, and came in because of an attempted suicide. And I was like, have you done this before? She said no, but what drove her to it is the fact that she's been a lecturer for 16 years. She's done everything herself, she's done so well lecturing, and now everything is online. She doesn't know how to use computers. She's not tech savvy, and she's got 3 kids, one I think PMR and UPSR, like all aligned. So everyone is fighting for time online. They are having classes. She needs to prepare for classes. She says her 1 hour lecture, she needs 3 hours to prepare because she has to type it out, write it in, do an online thing. And this whole thing just stressed her out. And I think she wasn't getting support at home. And everyone being at home just, I think, magnified it. And she was so stressed. It sounds so trivial when you say it, but when listening to her story, you start to wonder that how much MCO itself, being locked down, how much it can affect someone's, mental health. And it's quite sad. I had a lot of patients coming in for depression, those who lost their jobs, some with like 5 kids, 6 kids, and they're working 2 jobs, and they had to be retrenched because companies were shutting down, and they don't know what to do. They don't know how to feed their kids. They don't know how to bring money home. It's quite sad, lah.
But now we are in RMCO.
Yeah,
we are in RMCO. Did Aka realize, like, has the number of patients who have mental health challenges, are they still increasing, or is it constantly drop?
I think it's like static. So there was a sharp rise, the actual MCO that about 2 months that we had the complete lockdown where everything was uncertain, shops were not open, you can't go out and all that kind of thing, roadblocks everywhere. So this was that period. I think after that, once, I think our government did pretty well, I should mention that, because we really had a lot of protocols and a lot of SOPs, and they really looked into the matter, and from MCO to CMCO to RMCO, I think it was very well planned out and very well loosened. So I think from there, everyone started becoming more comfortable because jobs were getting back, people were getting their jobs back, although sometimes lesser salary, but and they were funding people who had lost their jobs. Government was they were giving out funds, all these policies for people who needed it. So I think eventually it phased out. It's static, but still there. I wouldn't say it dropped or anything, but static.
Interesting. Before we go to the next question, with Aka, like, seeing patients every day and they share their stories with Aka, how did Aka manage to look after Aka's own mental health? Because from what I've known, like, I have met experts also, and they say they meet patients who have any form of mental health challenges. And when you sit down and listen, you can get emotionally drained and all that. So how did Aka cope with that?
That's absolutely true. So I'm a big crybaby, and I cry if someone else cries. So you can imagine the 4 months how much I would have cried because everyone else crying. I try so hard. My specialist had told me actually a couple of times. She said you can't get caught up in other people's emotions, but sometimes it's so sad. I mean, she's a specialist for like 15 over years. You're used to it. I'm still new, and I'm still getting the hang of being in this. I did get affected by a lot of these stories, a lot of their personal lives. You tend to try and imagine yourself in their shoes, and then you feel really sad and empathize with them. But I don't know, I don't know if you ask me how I cope. Like I said in the beginning of this interview, I think how you are as a person, what's inbuilt in you really plays a role when it comes to all these kind of things. If you're strong as a person and you have a very positive or like a strong-willed mindset, I think nothing can really affect you. Although you get affected temporarily during that moment, and then you phase out. Of course, I would say in the 4 months, I did have a few stories that really, like, I brought back home. Like when I came home, I thought of it and I told like my sister or someone that's bothering me. But you just have to find ways to deal with it, like, especially knowing that we're doing something for the patient, and and she's on treatment now. You know, look at the good and try to, even when we're talking to the patients, we always give solutions, give them other options for treatment, not only medically, but like, you know, therapies, conversations, all the we call them psychotherapy. So this is when we don't use medication, and we like talk to the patient and, you know, motivate them. Um, Things that you've been doing in the LOA center, basically.
Yeah.
Things like that. I should have
That's
used your
really nice.
guinea pigs and, you know, chuck some patients there and say like, hey, can you like speak?
Nice, nice, nice. Cool, Ka. So it's nice that once Aka experience it, you would understand more. When Aka spend time with them, Aka would understand where they're coming from. And it's actually nice to have this conversation with someone who has been inside that environment, and to gain this experience is, I would say, quite priceless lah, because we can go and ask anyone about, hey, what do you think about mental health and everything, but when it comes from someone who has spent 3-4 months in the environment, you know, it's really just pure emotions. Aka lived it, Aka experienced it every single day. Aka had to see the same thing, or it might be a different thing. So moving on to our next question, Ka. I have to find which question that we're supposed to talk about. Okay, okay. So when Aka spoke about, okay, what we do in the center is we do help people with mental health and everything. So this comes to our next question. Is basically for someone who is not medically qualified. Example, if I don't have a doctor qualification in my field, as a friend, example, if it's to my sister, okay, how would I be able to help her in overcoming mental health and everything? Because now a lot of people actually are afraid to be diagnosed as depressed and everything. So the first person they will actually go to is actually their family or their friends. So for Aka as a doctor, what is your advice or tips for friends or family to actually help their loved ones to overcome it?
Yeah, so I think I've had experience in this before becoming a doctor. I think in my life there was always either family or some friend going through something, always talking about it. I think the biggest thing you can do is listen. Less talking, more listening. It's very important to be a good listener, because sometimes when someone is going through something and they want to talk about it, sometimes they just want you to listen, and they don't want to hear what they should have done or what they should not have done. You know what to do after this. Sometimes you just got to listen, and they just want someone to be there, someone to show that they care. But that being said, because I've seen like extreme cases of depression and bipolar and a lot of adjustment disorders, you have to know your limitations. If you feel like you're a family or a friend who have someone who's going through this, you have to know where your capabilities are, because some people tend to like over encourage people, like no, it's okay, it's fine, you'll be fine. But it's not fine, because people cope differently. How you cope is different to how your friend copes, and you can't just say, oh, it'll be fine, stop crying, or get over this, and everything's going to be okay, because for that person that may not be enough. So you must know your limitations as a friend or a family member, and know when to say, you know what, I think this is serious, you need to go and seek help, or do you want me to get an appointment for you so that someone professional who can understand or treat this situation can help you. So I think that's very important.
Listening, that is it reminds us to a conversation we had a few days ago in one of the episodes about listening, and we agreed you have to listen, because it takes a lot of skill to actually sit down and listen, because we as human, we tend to be social butterflies sometimes, to always talk and don't listen.
Yeah, most people I read this somewhere again. I'm a very quotey person, so I always tend to remember quotes off my head somewhere. There was one that said, the problem with the world nowadays is that we don't listen to understand, we listen to respond. So that's a bit powerful, I think, because sometimes we just need to listen to understand. People just want to tell us so that we understand how they feel or what they're going through. They don't really want an answer, you know. And also, there's another one where it said, that's the reason why God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth, so we listen twice as much that we talk.
Wow. Okay, I need to remember all of that because afterwards it'll be in the description. Wow, that's cool, huh? Yeah. But like for example, yeah, my sister mentioned that there are some people who are still afraid to express that they are facing some kind of difficulties. So how can we still help them without actually saying that I think you should express to me, like express, like without like getting them to express? How can we be there for them?
Yeah, that's a bit tricky actually, because it's so hard to deal with someone who's going through a phase of, because depression. There are few stages. Most of the time, it starts with denial, and they're defensive, and they don't wanna hear that. If you say that, oh no, you're sad, like no, I'm fine. That's like that defense mode, right? And it's always hard because anything you say can trigger them, so you have to be very careful with what you say. I think that's a very tricky question, but I think the best way is not to direct the situation. That means not to directly ask about the situation. For example, if you had someone close to you, example your sister, that you feel something's off, and you're like, what happened? Are you okay? And she's not sharing, right? Try doing other things, finding things that she likes to do. Go for shopping and go for like a movie, and try to spend more time, give enough room for the barrier to be broken, and maybe that person will tell you themselves.
It's a very nice advice. Give time, and they'll open up.
Yeah,
Give time and space. That's very nice, Kak. I really like the answer. Thank you so much, Kak, for actually sharing that really, really powerful tool and technique that we ourselves can do as friends and families to those that we love and care. So this brings us to our second last question? Second last question. Okay. So Aka, as a doctor, full-time doctor by profession, and also a beauty pageant queen, wise queen. Okay.
Yeah.
How do Aka actually advocate mental health with holding such a, I would say, a very prominent presence in the society, right? So how do Aka give back and contribute and advocate about mental health using what Aka has now?
Actually, I just remembered. There's a lot of mental health awareness talks and campaigns that are always going around, and people always happen to tell me about it or call me for to speak or something. That's one thing I try to never say no, like for you. Although I was busy, mental health has always had a special place in my heart for some reason. I've always been passionate about it. So every time there's a talk or some awareness campaign, I always make sure that I share or I attend it myself. But apart from that, I think the biggest platform that I've used is my social media platform, my Instagram especially, because that's where I have the highest audience, I guess. And apart from my psychiatry posting, of course, during psychiatry, I posted a lot of things, not only awareness, stories that moved me, things that I wanted people to know, advocating about certain things that I felt was important in mental health. Even other departments, when I had patients who had stories that were, I felt that were moving and that needed to be heard, I always use my social media platform.
Social media, very, very powerful platform now. Previously, 2 days ago, we actually had a chat and social media came into the picture again, and our speaker told us social media, if we use it right, it becomes a very powerful platform and good platform to be used. And like what Aka said, you actually have a bigger reach through Instagram and everything. So I feel that is a very, very good way to actually reach out to more lives, because I've read the stories Akka have shared about Akka's patients and everything, and get the inside story from them itself, because um, I have this belief that sometimes the patients in the hospitals, they are not being heard that often. No one actually has the time to spend at least 5-10 minutes with them to hear their stories, and it's so nice to know that Akka actually does that, and you would get to know the patient even more better.
Yeah,
So
that's
yeah.
very true. Working in Klang especially, or any big general hospital, your patient turnover rate is so high that it's just one after one after one, and you really can't afford to spend so much time on one patient, which is quite sad, because you want to just finish, get the next, get the next, get the next one. And you notice that some patients actually come for a very trivial problem, but they just want to tell you a story, and they want to tell you like, oh doctor, this happened. And or sometimes, like, for simplest example, a patient had a fall, okay, and broke his knee or something, and needs to get a surgery done, but he wants to tell you why he broke his knee, and he wants to tell you how he broke his knee. And at that point you're like, oh my god, I have no time for this, and I've got like 100 other patients to see, and I need to get things done. Not that we want to work like robots, but if we don't do things fast, the patient won't get their treatment fast enough. As in, we have to, there's a lot of things that come into play when it's like, patient, you have to clerk the patient, you have to write forms, you have to, call the anesthetist to come to see if the patient is fit for an operation. Then the operation must take place, you must find a date. There's a lot of things to be done. So every minute you spend extra, it's later for the patient. So actually we're trying to help the patient, but patient's not going to understand. But sometimes you try and force yourself to listen, and then you see there's actually a sad story, and the patient tell you that, oh, he has no kids, or his wife just died, and before this his wife always took care of him, and now he's alone. So he tripped on the stairs, and he wants to tell you all this story. So when you actually sit and listen, it's actually, there's a lot more to what they're trying to tell you. And sometimes they just want you to listen, and they just want to be heard, and you just sit and chit chat for a while, and then curse yourself because like, oh, now I have to run.
Nice. So we are actually at the end of the conversation, and we heard a lot of very interesting, very impactful opinions from Akka, and we really appreciate it. And I think like today me and my sister did learn something. Yeah. So we're coming to the end of our conversation, and me and my sister, we did learn something very important from Akka, and we are very happy to have this conversation with Akka, because mental health is something that is very important, and we need to emphasize it more. We need to make a bigger voice, like tell people, hey, it's okay, we are here for you, you can reach out, there is help, there's always help, and all that. So at the beginning of our conversation, my sister mentioned that the theme for this year is basically about being more human. So we wanted to know from Aka's own personal opinion, what does it mean to be human?
Okay, I think I actually sort of spoke about this at the beginning of the interview. For me, I think being human is to serve others. Because we all come into the world the same. We all have the same gifts and same privileges. I'm speaking very generally, not to say, of course, where you're born, what you're born with, your family status, financial status, all these plays a role. But I think every soul that was given the human form on earth will leave the same way. We don't take anything back. We don't leave much except for memories. And I think for me, the most important thing is how you help other people, or how you play a role in another person's life. Because when you're not there anymore, it's how you're remembered. That's what's important. So I think that's I spoke something about this earlier. It's how we use our skill, or use ourselves, basically how we use ourselves as a mean to help someone else. So in my sense, I feel like that's one of the biggest reasons why I chose to be a doctor, or why I do anything I do, especially any decision that I make or anything I decide to do in life. It's always, how is this going to be impactful or better than someone else? That's my motto. So I think everyone has a different meaning to their human life, but this is mine. It's how you help other people or how you serve others.
I really like that. Okay, like actually, I read a lot, and I realized that there is this common thing where a lot of authors, they believe that when we are brought into this physical world, we have a purpose, and that purpose is actually to give something to others, either in the form of aid,
Yeah.
or something. But we are here because we have to serve others. So and I resonated that with Akala, and I think it's a very, very good definition about being human, and it makes sense since Aka's a doctor. So yeah. Awesome, Kak. So
Yep.
shall we do the closing? Yeah. Okay. All right. So before we actually close, Kak, we would like Aka to share maybe just one advice, one quote, or one how do I say it? one takeaway message from this chat, this topic that we're talking today, and for our viewers. So just one sweet one to sum up the whole thing that Aka is going to talk about, in this whole thing. Just one, and Aka can go.
Okay. Actually, I think I already mentioned this quote, and I think that would be the most impactful for this topic, especially. Be kind to everyone, because you don't know what kind of battle they're facing.
I love it. Awesome. Love it. Be kind to everyone. Yes. After all, we all are human beings. Like we all are the same. If you cut our hand, we all have blood, right? So we all are the same. So you just have to be kind. So for all those who are viewing us today, thank you so much for actually taking your time to really sit and understand what does mental health mean, especially from a doctor's view who has been in the medical line for years now, for her to experience, live with it, and for her to talk about it. We really appreciate the time Aka has given us to really have this session, because we really wanted someone from this line to actually come in and chat with us, because as much as we can talk about it, but nothing beats someone who has been in this environment. So we would like to really thank Aka. It was so hard to actually get Aka's time. So we really appreciate it.
I'm so sorry. I really tried hard. I know I gave my word, and I really wanted to do it. Plus, I know you both and your mom for so many years, and I was like, I need to do it, but I'm sorry I had to postpone. But hey, we got it done.
No worries, guys. So for all the viewers who are watching now, please do go and check out Aka on Instagram. Her Instagram name is Dhviya Dhyana. Okay, so her link to her Instagram will be in the description below. And if you do like this video, do give it a thumbs up, big thumbs up, and leave a comment below on what you actually learned, or if you would like to share your experience in helping a friend with mental health. And I'm sure Dr. Dhivya would like to actually help you and give advice on what we can do. So do hit the subscribe button too, because we are going to come up with much more new talks with our panelists, with our friends, speakers, and it's going to be all about youth. So we believe now youth is the voice of the world, right? So here we are, and we would really thank Aka for really taking your time today, because we know Aka ended her shift at 12 p.m. just now. So I was like, whoa, okay. So thank you so much, Ka. I hope that you continue to find joy every single day in what you do. And I always will text this to Aka, happy saving lives. So thank you so much, Ka.
Thank you for having me. Bye.
Okay.